I want you to take a good look at these first two pictures. They are almost exact replicas of a delusional mind parasite. Hollywood scriptwriters have their quote-unquote sources, just like news journalists have. The scriptwriters often receive accurate information from sources high up in the Black Ops programs, cosmic clearance, that the scriptwriters incorporate into their movies. Of course, they also receive disinformation. So as always, remember, clear thinking, a strong mind, and a good connection with your feelings, and most importantly, a direct connection with divinity. Welcome to the place inside. I am your host, Laurence Galian, and we are celebrating our 30th podcast with this transmission. We've been encouraged by the many thousands of views our podcasts have received and the very positive comments you are writing on YouTube. We encourage you to share these podcasts and the video blogs made from them with your friends and UFO metaphysical group. I also encourage you to email me with your thoughts, and especially if you want me to do a program about a certain topic, or if you want me to elaborate more about something. So if you email me, I will take it under consideration, and maybe we will do a podcast about it. We've got an exciting show lined up for you tonight. Plasma aliens, how to strengthen your will, more about how to deal with delusional alien mind parasites, an exercise from Gurdjieff, a short primer on exactly what plasma is. We're going to talk about dark plasma. We'll talk about heaven and hell, electro-convulsive therapy as a weapon. We will be continuing with our exploration of Yin and Yang, thermochromic aliens, and much more. So, we talked last time about strengthening the mind through doing mind exercises of any and all types. You can grow new neurons and strengthen the connection between existing neurons this way. Most importantly, though, in the regard we have been talking about, a strong mind is one of the finest methods to protecting yourself from alien mind parasites and deleting them from your skull. These delusional alien mind parasites, for a particular reason, when they take over a person's brain, they look backwards. In other words, the human host's eyes are in the front of the head by the nose, as in almost all humans. But the alien parasite has two huge eyes through which it looks out of the back of your head. How do you strengthen your mind besides the methods I gave you in the last podcast? Remember, when we talked about my reluctance to read old metaphysical books that reference scientific principles as they were then understood, I always feel a little strange when I am reading a book from, say, 1904, and the writer is referring to, for example, electrons being like little planets rotating around the quote-unquote sun of the nucleus. Yet the men and women who wrote these books were no fools. Moreover, I've learned never to ignore these books because they contain much wisdom. Don't disregard a book because it wasn't written in the 21st century. So, in many esoteric and metaphysical books of 100 or so years ago, the author gives such exercises as the following. These exercises are fantastic ways to strengthen the brain and the will. Exercise number 1. Find and buy an analog clock. A wristwatch will do, but it is not the best for this exercise. An analog clock is a clock that has a second hand, one that ticks off the seconds. Sit and for 5 minutes, just watch the second hand sweep around the clock 5 times. Do this once a day for a week, and then increase this to 6 minutes. Eventually work your way up to 10 minutes or 10 sweeps of the second hand. Another great exercise to develop the will and to help you to perceive more clearly is to pick a simple bodily or vocal gesture that you do all the time. For example, maybe you cross your legs a certain way, right over left or left over right. Maybe you talk with your hands. Just pick one gesture. Perhaps you cross your arms in front of you a lot. Well, the exercise would be to stop crossing your arms in front of you for 1 entire month. Or, vocally, maybe you have a tendency to say, frequently between the words or sentences. Or perhaps you use a special word or sound like or so, or some particular word that you use frequently between other words or sentences. Some people are chronically going clearing their throat, even when there is nothing in their throat to irritate it. The exercise: put a rubber band around your wrist, and every time you cross your legs that certain way, or each time you say, snap the band on your wrist. You must become skilled at self-observation. Watch yourself as if you were both yourself and a detached observer, someone outside of you, especially at times when you are in great emotional turmoil. You must do this exercise. This exercise was given by the great master Gurdjieff, or more correctly pronounced Gurdjieff. It truly astounds me that many great speakers and authorities in ufology are not familiar with such names as Gurdjieff, Steiner, Joseph Campbell, O'File, and so forth. Where do you think George Lucas, who was behind the Star Wars movies, got his inspiration? Yep, from his university professor, Joseph Campbell. Lucas even bought Campbell a beautiful ranch as a gift after Star Wars became a huge, consciousness-expanding mega hit. Campbell is the author of the book The Hero with 1,000 Faces, a book that I have highly recommended to those of you who want to join my movement, the Metaphysical Freedom Fighters. You should have gotten the idea by now that I want you to also read Colin Wilson's great book, The Mind Parasites. Someday I have to put up a reading list on the website or in the Show More section under each YouTube video blog of the podcast. If you want this, email me and I will do it. Because another great book to make you aware of the truly amazing powers available to any human being who chooses to do some moderate daily work at becoming actualized is the book, quote, Autobiography of a Yogi, unquote. This book has sold millions upon millions of copies and is available in just about every language on earth. So, what is plasma? When I first heard this word in science class when I was a tiny child in grammar school, I was immediately transfixed, excited, and fascinated. It still carries an intense fascination with me. Plasma is often called the fourth state of matter, the other three being solid, liquid, and gas. Whoa, let me stop here. I don't want to lose you. My teacher in grammar school was teaching about the types of matter. She told us about solids, like a rock, then about liquids, like water. Do you know that about 87% of your body is water? Yes, even your bones contain water. Then we went on to the third form of matter that she called, quote-unquote, gas. This is simple: gas. It's just another word. For example, the air we breathe. Oxygen is a gas. Hold on, I am not just going to spell out a grammar school explanation here. We're going to get into some mind-blowing facts. So, solid, liquid, and gas are the three most common states of matter here on Earth. Then she told us something that I did not expect. She said that there was another form of matter. Well, I had certainly played with and thrown rocks when I was a kid. I certainly drank plenty of water, and I always loved fresh air. But what was this mysterious fourth type of matter? She said plasma. Wow. But I thought, I've never seen any plasma. What's she talking about? Well, I was wrong. What are some everyday examples of plasma? First, lightning. Lightning is plasma. It is not a fire coming out of the sky. Let's be clear about that. But here are several additional forms of plasma that most of you all know. I'm sure you've all seen men and women working on buildings or cars, and they are welding. Maybe your parents told you not to look directly into the light coming from the welder's torch. Those who live in places where you can see an aurora in the sky, that is plasma too. Not just the kind of rainbow. The stars, our sun, fluorescent lamps, neon signs, the fireball made from a nuclear bomb. Again, this is not fire. The tails of comets, plasma TVs, and interstellar clouds. I'm sure you've seen those beautiful color photos that NASA has released of the cosmos with those gorgeous interstellar clouds in magnificent shapes. Now, let's talk about electricity for a moment. Of course, we all use electricity every day. All life forms are made up of subtle yet complex electrical fields that influence vital functions such as metabolism, growth, thought, movement, and overall health. The human body is composed of ions, water, and minerals, making it a conductor of electrical energy. Billions of electrical impulses regulate the activity of every living cell in our bodies, affecting its ability to heal itself and impact our well-being. But if an electromagnetic pulse bomb is detonated over a major city, a bomb that is full of compressed EMF, say goodbye to your computer, television, stereo, cell phone, and Nintendo. An E-bomb attack would leave buildings standing and spare lives, but it could destroy a considerable size army's technology. These weapons are not directly responsible for the loss of lives. But if an EMP bomb knocked out a hospital's electricity, for example, any patient on life support would die immediately. And a deeply serious effect would be noticed in the brains of human beings. The bomb would not cause their deaths, but our consciousness would change. Because remember, the brain is connected to the mind. The mind is non-local, but the brain picks up the signals of the mind quantumly. And if the brain's electrical system starts to fail, it can no longer maintain a good connection to the mind. This is rarely discussed, probably because the military does not want people to know about this. Why? Well, think of what they do to people in psychiatric wards in hospitals. What do they give to very depressed patients? Electroshock therapy. Today the psychiatrists call it by a more fancy name, taking out the word shock so it seems less harmful. They call it now electro-convulsive therapy, or ECT for short. They literally shoot an electrical current through the brain of the patient, causing, in their opinion, the opinion of the psychiatrist, a reset of the entire brain. This is never done just once. The poor, unsuspecting patient in need of real energetic healing, such as Reichian therapy, family constellations, shamanic flower remedies, entheogens, etc., are instead given sets of 6 to 12 so-called treatments of ECT therapy. Some I have personally known have had more than 50 treatments. Now, patients who undergo electroshock therapy lose most of their short-term memory. They walk around, still often being kind persons. Usually sensitive people are very vulnerable to depression, but they have a robotic aspect to them after they receive the ECT therapy. They constantly apologize for forgetting your name and who you are. And in the cases I have personally seen, their depression is not alleviated at all. Most psychiatrists today are witch doctors, in the pejorative use of that term. I would rather have a true brujo than one of these shrinks. They also have a very small bag of remedies, compared to, say, the huge amount of Bach flower remedies available. Also, now the psychiatrists are taking to inflicting what they call quote-unquote cocktails, which consist of maybe 5 to 7 different antidepressant pills simultaneously. But do not be stupid. Do not throw the baby out with the bathwater. If you need help, there are psychologists and psychiatrists out there working with acupuncture, Reiki, the orgone, and so forth, who really can help you. You just have to do a bit of extra searching for them. If your intention is pure, you will find them. Think now of the political and military results an evil government or political leader could inflict on a populace by wiping out their short-term memory. The people would have no idea what happened to them, why they can't remember the world situation which led to the bomb attack, forget who the enemy is, and why they are so disoriented. It is a nightmare. So it is important to write things down pertaining to your emergency preparedness. Put a large envelope on one of your walls and write on it in large letters, emergency. And in it, put down all the steps you are going to take in case of an emergency. If you have the time, write out a little synopsis every day, just about the day's political war situation. You can just cut and paste if you want and quickly print it out and put it in the envelope. No more than a paragraph or two, more if you wish. And place it into the envelope along with your other emergency information, especially, and listen closely, about people whom you have just met and information you have obtained in the last 72 hours. In the end, the most sweeping effect of an E-bomb could be psychological. A full-scale EMP attack in a developed country would immediately bring modern life to a halt. Plenty of survivors would be alive, but a very different world they would experience. An effectively large-scale E-bomb or EMP assault may topple a country to the pre-electronic era. These bombs exist. It is very possible they will be used rather than nuclear bombs, since every country knows that a nuclear bomb will destroy a city, but it will also leave it uninhabitable for hundreds, thousands, sometimes millions of years. They also know that the nuclear clouds and falling radiation will kill millions of people in neighboring countries. So why am I talking about this? Well, first and foremost, you must be totally prepared to exist in a world without your everyday electricity. I am talking, of course, about knowing how to start a fire and cook a meal without your microwave. But more importantly, I am talking about how you can be conscious, effective, safe, and prosper in a very different kind of world. We don't know what 2012 and the coming years will bring. Huge changes are already happening to the Earth and human consciousness. I am telling you, the world is not the same world that you lived in 10 years ago, or 30 years ago for that matter. Alien contact, if it is in a direct and open form, true alien contact, not some fake Hollywood, a special effect kind of thing, will dramatically change the consciousness of people. How are you going to deal with a being that has many more millions of years of development than humanity? Are you going to take out your gun and shoot them if they are hostile? I don't think guns will be of any help to you. Are you going to just think, this is wonderful, finally they have landed and will bring peace to the world, if they are benign and friendly? No, in your present state of consciousness, it is likely that you will not understand them in the least. Of course, I believe that both nefarious and friendly aliens have been here for millennia, and many of them are walking side by side all around us every day. But my point is, do you have the tools to deal with a dramatic earth change or a dramatic consciousness explosion? My answer, which by now I am sure you know, is that unless you immediately start working on your direct connection to the most powerful reality in all the universes, the one ultimate reality, then you will be powerless and ineffective. Unless you simultaneously start immediately working on activating yourself. And for thousands upon thousands of years, masters, sages, prophets, and initiates have taught various methods of doing this. If you don't wake up out of your hypnotic stupor and start walking the path of the complete human being, then you will easily be overwhelmed. Someone by the name of Lex Hickson said something once. I'm proud to say that I knew him personally. He said that there is no hell. Hell is just the same light that shines in heaven. But for those who have never developed the spiritual parts of themselves, never done any meditation, never read spiritual books, the light is so overwhelming to them and brilliant that it feels like it is a fire to these people. They feel like they are burning. I thought what he had to say was brilliant. Well, the Kabbalists and other mystics have said that, in some sense, you can say that heaven and hell are both here on earth. There is no well-defined boundary between life and death, no clear boundary between the living and the dead. Now go to Wikipedia, which defines mysticism as follows, quote, mysticism, from the Greek meaning an initiate, is the knowledge of and especially, the personal experience of states of consciousness, i.e. levels of being beyond normal human perception, including experience and even communion with a supreme being, unquote. That's directly from Wikipedia. There is something the Hindu yogis call pralaya, or cosmic night. Basically, everything in all the universes shuts down, and the universes themselves go through a kind of death experience. Then it all starts up again, everything. In and out, inhale and exhale, as above, so below. We shut down every night when we go to sleep. Now, in between these two extremes, periodically, throughout the life of all the universes, on all the planets, there are dramatic changes in which the advanced souls move to a different state of consciousness and existence, and the much less developed souls are left behind to continue their development. Unbelievably, the born-again Christian concept of the rapture is a faint remembrance of this periodic shift, when there occurs a dramatic shift throughout all of humanity and the physical planet itself. It is said by some that the moon came into being exactly because of this process. The less developed souls were left behind on the moon, while the more developed souls began to incarnate on the new Earth. Well, many of the most cutting-edge ufologists and thinkers of our time are saying that we are in store for a huge consciousness shift in the very near future. This may well be what the Mayans saw when they predicted backwards the end of the world as we know it on December 21st, 2012. Often these huge shifts are accompanied by shockingly amazing Earth changes, in which the Earth undergoes massive physical, etheric, astral, and spiritual changes. Often millions upon millions die. But of course, as the Celts would say every morning upon waking, it is a good day to die. The Celts had no fear of death, because they knew, not believed, knew that rebirth was real. They also knew the extreme closeness of the realms of life and death. It is time you strip off your fears and misconceptions about death, and see the continuum of the life field in all its various facets. There are even scientists who are doing work that is proving the continuity of the mind field after death and into rebirth. I suggest you watch Rupert Sheldrake's amazing new video on YouTube. It is produced by that great new film company UFO TV, and the video is entitled, quote, The Afterlife Investigations 1-Rupert Sheldrake, PhD, unquote. Rupert Sheldrake, of course, is the discoverer of the morphic field, or morphogenetic resonance. He has been working on telepathy in recent years, and now he's turning his attention to consciousness through death and communication from the dead to the living. He is more than a brilliant man. He has willingly sacrificed his scientific preeminence to go where almost no other scientist dares to explore. He is accompanied by a few other brave scientific souls who dare to live up to the true principle of science, to explore all phenomena without prejudice. A well-known Russian cosmonaut recently stated that in his opinion the scientific missions of certain alien races are missions to understand God. Isn't that amazing? These ETs are trying to better understand God by understanding the creation of the divine. Of course, by now they have had millions of years to explore all the laws of nature, conventional science as we understand it, and they can easily manipulate and work with all the varied quote-unquote laws of nature, which may be actually changing as time goes on and through consciousness. But now these aliens are working on what is called the great work, that of understanding the ultimate reality. Of course, no human or alien can understand the one real existence in its complete fullness, but by going to other planets, these extraterrestrials can know the divine more fully. Why do you think I am always telling you to spend as much time in nature as possible? To understand, truly understand the divine, you must become aware of its reflection, if you will, in the world around you. Remember what Hermes Trismegistus said, as above, so below. What does that word Trismegistus mean after the name Hermes? It means thrice great, or 3 times great. The clues are all around you. Open your eyes, ears, and you will begin to know. Science and spirituality were at one time on our planet united. They were not considered separate approaches. It has only been in the last few hundred years that scientism has appeared, which divides the world into the normal and the paranormal. For them, it is forbidden to even speak of the paranormal. A scientist once said to me, "I cannot even speak of the mind in a scientific paper. I must use the term quote-unquote brain, or else myself and my paper will be immediately dismissed and ridiculed." Yet for those ETs who are our friends, and those who earnestly desire to understand humanity, science and spirituality are not artificially separated. In physics and chemistry, plasma is a state of matter similar to gas, in which a certain portion of the particles are ionized. For those of you who want to know, an ion is an atom or molecule with a net electrical charge due to the loss or gain of one or more electrons. Why is this interesting? It is interesting because we have been talking about yang and yin. Heating a gas may ionize, in other words, reduce the number of electrons in its molecules or atoms, thus turning it into plasma, which contains charged particles, positive ions, which would be yang, and negative electrons, which would be yin. Ionization can be induced by other means too, such as by strong electromagnetic fields applied with a laser or microwave generator, and it is accompanied by the dissociation of molecular bonds if present. Now, if any of you have any strong microwave towers in your vicinity, I urge you to perhaps consider living somewhere else. We as humans perceive visually only the type of radiation we have named visible light. When I say radiation, I'm talking about the electromagnetic spectrum. When we perceive visually the type of electromagnetic radiation that is beyond the ability of our eyes to see, we perceive a void of light, which we would interpret as black. It is not in fact black, but a color which we cannot perceive. Just like, for example, a dog whistle. The note of the whistle is so high, most humans cannot hear it. Yet a dog's ears are so sensitive that they can hear it loud and clear. The same with an eagle's eyes and some other birds who can see much more clearly and further distances than human beings. Same with our eyes when it comes to light. It's beautiful to think of the fact that there are colors which we do not yet have the physical ability to perceive, yet we are composed of every aspect of the divine. However, most of these aspects are veiled to us, and many are hidden. Those of you who plunge into the mystic world may be granted the ability to see these colors. Black, in fact, is simply veiled polychromatic color. Someone by the name of J. Alfred, J-A-Y, Alfred, has something interesting to say about plasma aliens on his website, Dark Plasma Theory. He believes that aliens are not extraterrestrial, but intraterrestrial co-inhabitants of this planet. Alfred's dark plasma theory holds that the physical dense Earth is gravitationally coupled to a counterpart dark matter Earth. Dark matter is invisible matter, which is 5 times more abundant in the universe than ordinary matter. He goes on to write, that dark, or we can call it black plasma life forms, emit dark electromagnetic waves. Humans who can activate the sensory systems of their dark bioplasma bodies can use their dark sight to view these life forms. That is why some human beings can see aliens and others cannot. By switching off relevant and specific brain circuits, a person may transfer his or her locus of awareness to a bioplasma body with a relevant sensory apparatus, which is sensitive to the right frequency, to be able to view the plasma life forms currently cohabitating our counterpart Earth. That is why it is said often that one can see aliens and ghosts out of the corner of one's eye or at special angles. These are just different ways of saying that we are changing the way we are viewing these entities. We are transferring our locus of awareness of our bioplasma body. When the bioplasma body's sensory systems are activated, the body becomes partially or completely visible to the inhabitants in the dark biosphere. This thus invites interaction from nearby observers, if any. UFO sightings often occur when a person is taking a long car ride in a featureless area like a desert. This is another way to view aliens. This provides the ideal conditions for a person to go into a meditative state and cause the transfer of the locus of awareness to parallel bodies with different cognitive sensory systems, landing them in our plasma-based counterpart Earth. In this type of encounter, it is not so much a case of the aliens visiting our visible Earth, but it is we who are dropping by uninvited into an alien Earth environment. This is a Type 2 encounter. If the ordinary Earth environment completely disappears and you find yourself in a completely new environment, to a dark plasma life form living in the dark biosphere, you will be viewed as an alien, and it would be justifiably curious or even frightened. In other words, now this is going to sound a little strange, but in the works with chaos theory, there is real science behind it, as well as wisdom. Chaos theory gets into some fascinating things. We just said that often when you see black, you are looking at something that is shining light. You just can't perceive it with your senses. My point? Well, many times when you are looking for something, it helps to stop looking for it. If you are trying to come up with a certain idea for a presentation at work, for example, go for a long walk. Walk randomly, not anywhere in particular. Look around you at things you normally don't look at, don't have any purpose. And often, when you return from your walk, your idea will pop into your head. The same applies to spiritual, metaphysical, and transformational work. Often when you are trying to see the organic light, the living light, the divine light. You can try and try and try and nothing happens. If that case applies to you, then stop hoping it will happen. Continue to apply yourself to your exercises, the practices I give you, but forget results. Very important. Lust for results often only brings frustration. When you see only black, just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and just when you don't expect it, light will flood in upon you. On the website Isis Baha Allah Baha, Seed of David One with the Master Creator, I found the following written, quote, "When we encourage thoughts and deeds of the positive light and character to deeds of positive love, we individually defeat that negative light implants of a biological kind. These implants have contributed to the dumbing down of consciousness, not only in celestial matters around us, but in the herding of humanity as sheep by governing divisions and deceiving religions of faiths," unquotes. This applies just as much to alien, delusional mind parasites as it does to biological implants. Implants do not have to be physical or visible to do their dirty work. Plasma is often associated with light. Plasma behavior can be unexpected at times. It is very nonlinear, and the point at which the plasma produces light is very sensitive to a number of factors. An attempt at a description of the behavior would most likely fall short. This is certainly something that is appreciated when experienced directly. The magnetic fields we see in space are created by ionized plasma, which is electrically conductive. In other words, it can carry electricity through it, like the wires in your house. So think about how electricity can shoot through immense distances of space. As the electricity flows through the plasma, large electrical currents flow through space plasma, which can ultimately explain observations that are currently attributed to things such as black holes or dark matter. Genie is an English translation of the Arabic term jinn. The English word comes from the French génie, which means a spirit of any kind, which in turn came from the Latin genius, which means a sort of personal guardian spirit assigned to each person at birth. The word jinxed may very well be related to jinn. Islam teaches that there are three main intelligent life forms: angels, jinns, and humans. Angels are made of light. The 55th chapter of the Quran, called Ar-Rahman, states that jinns are made of smokeless fire, and humans are made of clay, like that used in pottery. In modern terms, we may say that humans are carbon-based or water-based, jinns plasma-based. This will become apparent after reading what I have to say below. And angels are photonic life forms, and appear to have undergone some form of evolution. In Islam, the existence of jinns is taken very seriously and is fully accepted, even legally and even to this day, in Islamic jurisprudence. The science behind plasma cosmology is much more reality-based than standard cosmological theory. Plasma cosmologists base their theory on laboratory observations of electrified plasma, and then scale their observations up to galactic sizes. This method allows them to physically test their theories against controlled lab experiments, which results in much more rational explanations being put forth. Like usual, the military and NASA-type scientists think that bigger is better. Of course, I'm generalizing, but I think you get the picture. When you can travel anywhere in the universe through the Stargate inside you, why is NASA working on gigantic deep space vehicles? It always seems to me that it is the little guy that wins the day. Think of Frodo in The Lord of the Rings, the little hobbit that the greatest evil force would never expect to attempt to scale its frightening heights. Think of Vietnam and how we carpet-bombed and napalmed the hell out of North Vietnam. And yet the North Vietnamese, with just shovels, created an immense and intricate network of underground tunnels which befuddled the Americans. The extent and magnificence of these tunnels is only beginning to be realized. Think of how we fought in 2 war theaters during World War II against the Japanese and the Germans. With the help of our allies, we won that war within 4 years. Yet, fast forward to 2001, and now we have been fighting armies in Iraq and Afghanistan and Libya with no air force to speak of, with little advanced technology to speak of, and yet we can't seem to win against what we call the insurgency. Well, if my country was occupied by another country, I'd damn well fight to get them out. And if that's insurgency, then so be it. But why is it that with our stealth fighters, our stealth bombers, our state-of-the-art drones, our sophisticated weapons, we cannot defeat these so-called enemies? Besides the fact that I think the U.S. economy is largely a war-based economy, there is the looming fact that size does not equal might. I just heard Bill Burns say that isn't it interesting that since the 40s, when we had the atom bomb, and then quickly the Soviets had the bomb, followed thereafter by several more countries having nuclear weapons, there has not been one case in traditional historical chronicles of a nuclear weapon ever being fired as an act of war. He said that this leads him to think that there are forces at work behind the scenes preventing this. Why do you think UFOs have such a fascination with our nuclear bomb missiles, missile silos, and missile bases? Remember, Area 51 was, at the time of the famous Area 51 crash, the Roswell crash, the home of the only fighter group in the whole United States that housed the nuclear bombs. Since then, UFOs have regularly and routinely visited military sites with nuclear weapons, and not only visited them, but turned on and off the firing mechanisms of these weapons. The extraterrestrials have clearly demonstrated that they can control our nuclear weaponry. What do we make of this? Well, it is clear. It is exactly what I was just talking about. There is no point in trying to build Ronald Reagan-type Star Wars defense systems. They are a joke to the aliens. That is why I have formed the Metaphysical Freedom Fighters. Only by focusing our energy onto the true source of all power and directly connecting with that power can we have true ability to face hostile aliens on a level playing field. And if our intentions are noble and good, then as David slew Goliath, we have nothing to fear. India, in many ways, is leading the way on disclosing information on ETs and UFOs. Recently, India Daily Technology Team released the following information, quote, "Bioplasma aliens and UFOs are all around us all the time. These life forms and UFOs are all around us, invisible to our perception and rarely detectable by our scientific detectors. The bioplasma bodies are composed of complex plasma of non-standard particles. Non-standard particles are particles that are outside the physicist's standard model. and which are included in dark matter, matter that is 10 times more prevalent in the known universe than ordinary matter. These thermochromic aliens and their UFOs change colors at different temperatures in the visible and invisible spectrum. They can become transparent or translucent. Hence, they can apparently materialize and dematerialize. They are able to pass through each other in the same way that objects composed of collisionless plasma or dark matter do. They achieve active transport. The way they achieve active transport is by sucking in energy particles in the direction of the motion. The suction generates a drift, unquote. That is from India Daily. Intelligent bioplasma aliens and their UFOs work on the same principles. Fast-moving plasma life forms will generate only weak sonic booms. This is because they are composed of that collisionless plasma and have a very low resting mass. Ultra-sensitive instruments in close proximity to the entity should be able to pick up the weak sonic boom. The appearance and characteristics of the bodies of aliens, ghosts, angels, and deities show marked similarities and suggest that they are composed of the same substance, magnetic plasma. Magnetic plasma, besides generating electromagnetic fields, is a good conductor of electricity and radiator of electromagnetic waves. This is not meant to explain away aliens, but rather to demonstrate that an entire host of beings of all different types utilize plasma in various ways. Alien craft can make use of the plasma stream to cross vast distances of space. Some aliens are composed of plasma. It has been suggested that according to the ancient Gnostic tradition, the pleroma, which is the hub of the galaxy containing the infinite light potential dwelling in the center of the Milky Way, which of course is very similar to the Mayan belief that their deities came from the center of the Milky Way, as well as the Celtic beliefs, that these divine beings actually seed the galaxy. It is, as it were, that the galaxy is like a vast farm. Please excuse that interruption. We have trucks here in Mexico that drive around selling all sorts of different things, and they continuously broadcast the message saying what they're selling, and some of them will also be ringing bells and making other sounds. But anyway, let's travel back to the center of the Milky Way, where the divine beings actually seed the galaxy. Why we have to talk about aliens versus deities versus ghosts, I do not understand. These are all beings created by the infinite intelligence. And I think at times we confuse ourselves when we start dividing things up and putting name tags on them. It is, as it were, that the galaxy is like a vast farm, and the eons, in Gnostic terminology, like Sophia, or Sophia, as you may pronounce it, may nest in a plasma field. Get that. The eons will nest in a plasma field where it then grows. The growth is extremely slow, as this is where suns are born. As above, so below. What is the most brilliant and dazzling object in all of nature? Of course, our sun. If you watch the sunrise and sunset, and do not shut all your windows with dark shades, blinds, and curtains, you can start to get in touch with the living light. Why? It is simple. The sun is a living being. It is a huge alien. Why do so many people think aliens have to look like humanoids? Yes, of course, many of them look like you and me, but extraterrestrial life off of this planet Earth, takes many impressive and expressive forms, exalted forms in some cases, when the being or beings are very evolved spiritually. Well, to put it as directly as I can, the sun is a living being, and just like the earth is a living being that has billions of living beings on it, some of them sentient, so too does the sun have many very advanced beings living on it. They are plasma aliens. Their bodies are made of plasma. Human bodies are mostly carbon-based, water bodies. However, we and the sun aliens have electricity coursing through our beings. We both have quantum tunneling abilities, which means we have the ability to communicate electrically and on a quantum instantaneous level. You may still be wondering at the connection between metaphysics and ufology. I'll give you one more example following the same that we've been talking about. There are many very famous metaphysical groups that study the esoteric, the hidden wisdom. Some of these groups are named the Rosicrucians, the Order of the Golden Dawn, the Fourth Way. The Fourth Way is the work of Gurdjieff and Uspensky. Then there's Theosophy and many, many others. Then there are the individual metaphysical initiates like Madama Blavatsky and Idris Shah. They all teach or taught that on each planet of our solar system there dwell aliens. For decades, and in some cases many centuries, these groups and individuals explained in detail the nature of these beings on each of the planets and what they are doing there. They usually do not call them by the term quote-unquote aliens or extraterrestrials. Usually they are referred to by the name of the planet on which they live or simply by the term beings. Some are visible, some exist on wavelengths, planes, and parts of the electromagnetic spectrum that are not visible to our naked eye, but exist they do. And long before books were written here on Earth about flying saucers, these metaphysical masters were writing advanced, detailed, and clear information in their books and lectures about beings dwelling on planets in the solar system, and many taught and continue to teach about the sentient beings living throughout the universe and cosmos. Only a fool would disregard this valuable information that comes from the highest wisdom masters that have taught on this planet and elsewhere throughout the many worlds. For example, that is why I urged you to read the book Shikasta by Doris Lessing, who won the Nobel Prize for Literature and was an advanced student of the master teacher Idris Shah. Go read Idris Shah's books. They're fantastic. But her book Shikasta gives us hugely helpful and detailed information about the galactic network, albeit in the form of a science fiction story. That book changed my life. This is not unlike most of the fiction work of Whitley Strieber, who gives out huge secrets in his books, because he was a student of the Fourth Way for many, many years, has meditated most of his life. His book, like the amazing new book, The Key, will blow your mind. He is an unusual person, controversial at times, but he skillfully, frequently hides enormous metaphysical teachings in his fiction books. In his new book, new in sense of updated, The Key, he has a conversation with a being, perhaps an alien, we don't know, in a direct question and answer format. It is almost impossible to put down, but the information is so intense that you have to put it down frequently just to ask yourself, am I really hearing this? Then you could go on to even more subtle teachings, like given by Hermann Hesse in his book Magister Ludi and the Glass Bead Game, if you are willing to go into states of consciousness that perhaps you have never experienced before. You are getting a very high level of advanced metaphysical teachings here in the place inside, but you need patience. There is very little patience in the world world today, but patience is essential. Do you plant a seed and then the next day dig it up to see if it's growing? Don't you have to wait 9 months for a baby to grow inside you if you are a woman who wants a child? Take your time, do your work, and forget results. They happen when they happen. The plant bursts through the soil and the baby is born, all when the time is right. A fascinating new discovery here on Earth. There are beings right now just discovered as similar to bacteria that are silicon-based. Scientists have confirmed this discovery as 100% true and accurate, and yet why isn't anyone talking about it? Well, probably because the same scientists were saying just a few years ago that no silicon-based life forms could exist on planet Earth. Well, guess again, and where there's smoke, there is fire. If small silicon life forms can exist and thrive on a silicon-unfriendly world, such as ours, perhaps much larger, sentient and intelligent silicon life forms exist here as well as elsewhere in the 18,000 universes that make up the current life wave creation. I give you a lot of work, I know. Do as much as you can, but do something. Do what practices you can each day, as often as you can. If you want to transform your life, you have no other choice. Remember though, we are the finger pointing at the moon. I am talking about myself. We are not living in the moon. We are not the moon. When we talk about light, we are giving you hints. We are the moonlight reflected in buckets of water. Now, look into the skies. That ends our transmission for tonight. We will be in contact soon.